Hi, and welcome to the video for the 3D Modeler as part of the Client Brief 5 assignment for the module. If you are the 3D Modeler, you've been assigned the task of creating the geometry for the track and the girders and the structure and the roller coaster and things like that. So what you should have been given by your animator is a file with a line in it. Now it's very important that we don't edit that line in any way, as they're using this to keyframe the core animation. And the reason why we've got it, even though we're not doing any animation, is we need it to start modeling our track. We want to make sure our track is the same size, the same scale, the same shape, and kind of fits the scene. And actually, having the line available greatly reduces the amount of work that we need to do in order to develop kind of a viable track anyway. So it's really handy to have available. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by just making a nice little kind of rectangle, just as an example of what I'm going to do, and this is going to represent part of our track. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, I'm going to make this an editable poly, and I'm going to just add in a few more connections on here. It's been a bit silly for some reason. There we go. So I'm just going to add a couple more connections, as I said, in here, just so that I can play around with them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have two. I'm going to space them kind of probably about there. That's fine. So this kind of means that I can now play a little more with these edges, and I'm just going to grab those, and if I try to move them, it moves the whole thing, so I don't want to do that. But what I do want to do is I want to extrude them. I want to kind of create the edges of the track. So that's probably a little too much. Maybe just something like that would be pretty cool. And what I might want to do is actually come back in here. Clearly my area select's not working today, and I'm going to do another two. So notice that it remembers kind of where those two are, but this time I'm going to maybe put that there. I'm going to just switch to polygon, and I'm going to actually extrude this again, but this time I kind of want it to go inwards, maybe. So kind of do something like that. Yeah, that's fine. We're getting a little bit of sort of a little issue here, but that's fine for now. Don't bother with that. Now you absolutely do not have to model this in this way if you want kind of like a classic two-cylinder track or a monorail type track or anything like that. It's absolutely fine, and it's your design. You do however you want to design it, but I'm just showing you what we can do. So once we make a piece of track, we can come up here and we can actually go to tools, and under the alignment tools we have something called the spacing tool. So the spacing tool essentially uses a path and decides how many iterations of our shape we should have, and what space should be in between each version of our shape. So once you click on it, you kind of get this little menu here, and we're going to play around with these in a little bit, but the first thing we want to do is pick the path. So we already have our path, like I mentioned. We're just going to click pick path, and once you hover over it, you'll notice it highlights. So I'm just going to click on that, and you'll notice that we now have 2 on there. And one of the things you'll see is that it's kind of not quite on the right orientation, and also that there's only 2 of them, despite the fact we click 3. So here it says count 3, but that includes the original one. So we're going to play a little bit with that in a second, but the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this, and I'm going to maybe, before I do that, put angle snaps on and rotate that 90 degrees. And now when I come back over here, I can see that these have both been updated as well. So they're now kind of more following the path, which is great. And this count, so if this is kind of free, what we can do is we can maybe put that up to 30, and that kind of produces some some more, but we still have huge gaps. And we now have this issue of, as it goes round, it doesn't follow the track, so it stays consistent. So what we can do is, fortunately, Autodesk can afford of this. Down here we have a follow tick box. If we click that and update that, so that's great, but now we've got this odd rotation again. So I'm just going to come down here, and I'm just going to align that like that, go there. Okay, so that is looking a heck of a lot better, but we still have these huge gaps, right? So 30 is clearly not going to be enough, and we just keep playing with this number until we get to something that looks a little more workable. We still got these very small gaps, so maybe let's try 150. Let's just do 175 for the sake of it. Okay, so and we can change the spacing in between them if we want, but I just want auto. It's not a problem, and we could do a start end offset, all of those kinds of things. But generally speaking, that kind of looks okay actually. So I'm going to apply that and close. So now what we have is we have this kind of track that follows all the way around and even goes up and down. So that's pretty cool. That's a pretty good start. And you just need to kind of be a bit careful that you're filling up your scene manager. You might want to group these in the final one. And now what I'm going to do is just add a little more, let's go cylinder this time, a little more kind of information. So maybe if we make one of these, so you could use this and do the same thing to make the struts. So tools, align, spacing tool. Firstly I want to cut that down because we definitely won't need as many before I even select the line. And then pick path, and it's in there somewhere. There it is. So we've got some issues a little bit. We've got these are not at the right height, so you might want to play around with kind of where the pivot point on here is in order to get that, or you could even pick the points within your line where you want that to happen. I've lost my path there a little bit, so just make sure I go back onto that. What we're going to do is we're just going to select our cylinder. We're going to come up here. We're going to use the spacing tool again, pick our path, which is again our same path. 10's probably a little short, maybe 15. And we can have even spacing, uneven spacing if you want. But the positioning of those kind of along the track look okay to me. The only thing we just need to do now is I'm just going to control grab all of these. Probably do it quicker on the scene manager on the left, and just drop their height so until they're a bit like that. Ooh, this one. So you might have varying heights. So for example, this one you might want to play around a bit more with it, but that's okay again. So that's pretty much the start of it. Once you've done your track, feel free to send it back to your animator or even onto your environment artist, or just get some feedback on it, and then start modeling your coaster. Remember that the coaster, only the front end is shown in a POV video, so don't worry about spending too much time animating the whole thing unless you have the idea of sharing and maybe an outside clip of the coaster. And once you've done that, what you really need to do is send all of your models over to your texture artist so that they can start working on applying the materials and textures that they have been working on. But as far as your your roles considered, you're pretty much done once you have implemented the track and the carriage. So well done.